Will,
Yes, yes. Hi, Jane.
hi. I hope this is a short meeting.
Jane, I'm expecting you to make it a short meeting.
Oh, no, but you are better at that than me.
Well, do we have old business or new business? I hope neither.
Well, I'm sure Elizabeth will want to discuss the Zoom meeting with Sarah Carroll.
It's a Zoom meeting, not an in-person meeting. No
No,
matter.
isn't it a Zoom meeting, Will?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we going to be able to see you? I'm just looking at the agenda.
Oh,
right.
yeah. You're. I'm here.
Okay. How do I? Oh, I see. Okay.
I had turned off my camera while I was getting everything set up.
Okay. I'm trying to get the. I can see you, but I don't see anybody else. I thought
I don't see any.
Yeah.
I mean,
right now it's
you can get the gallery view, but I don't seem to be able to do that.
There's only 3 of us right now that have our cameras on. Michelle has a black screen.
Okay. But usually I can see everyone, but oh well.
You're on an iPad?
Yeah, but usually if I click on the left side, I can get the see everyone, but for some reason it's not working tonight.
That's odd.
Yeah.
It may be because right now I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
That is it. It'll
Yeah,
change in a second.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anna Fox, Anthony Kahn is here. We've only got 1 minute till when the meeting starts.
I'm really hoping a lot of them show up right on time.
Is Anna Fox an applicant?
I don't know who Anna Fox is. I have the list of the folks speaking for item 1 and item 2. So
An applicant would have to be visible.
yeah, Greg H. Are you Greg Hiller or Hill? Are you the person speaking on behalf of item 2, Greg?
Yes.
Okay, great. What is your last name?
Hitler.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll leave you as Greg H. if it's your preference.
It doesn't matter. It's fine.
Okay.
Dave, do you want to take 1 and I'll take 2?
It's always better if you take 1, Jane.
Oh, no. This time you're taking 1. I took 1 last time and it was so long.
Well, let's hope it's just the parapet.
Okay.
It looks like a gigantic set of drawings for just a parapet. If I have to do it, they won't get it till next week.
I see a lot of folks.
That's fine. That's fine if it's next week. I think we have more time this time. Oh, I see. Oh, there's a big group here. Okay.
Yeah, we just had a lot of folks join right on time. So
okay, well, I think we can start. Is Elizabeth here? I don't see
Elizabeth
Yes, she
is
is.
here.
Okay. Oh, yes, you're right. Oh, and Russell Squire is here. That's interesting. Russell, welcome. Will, I think we can start. Do you want to sort of tell people how to vote, or that use your little?
Yeah, I'll give my normal spiel.
Okay.
So for anyone who it's their first time at one of our virtual board meetings or committee meetings, everyone is muted and they're unable to unmute themselves to try to cut down on the background noise. And so how you'll have to be recognized by Jane and David is by using the raise hand feature in the participants menu. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see some, actually, I'll stop sharing my screen so it's a little easier for everybody to see. You'll see at the bottom of your screen a button that says participants, and it looks like two little people standing next to each other and has the number 20 next to it. So you'll open that box and you'll see a button on the box that as you open it that has a little hand up and says raise hand. That's the only way you'll be able to be recognized by Jane and David. So don't try to wave at us through your videos because we might miss it. The chat is there for anybody. If you have any questions, you can chat me and ask me a question about the software. Other than that, it looks like we have our folks for the first presentation.
Thank you, Will. Good evening. This is the August meeting of the Landmarks Committee of Community Board 8. We have two applications for certificates of appropriateness. We will hear from the applicant, then from the public, and then the committee will go into executive session and formulate a resolution that will be sent directly to the commission. There is no full board meeting in August for Community Board 8. So with that, I think we will proceed to item number 1. David Halpern, the co-chair, will take number 1.
220 East 61st Street, Treadwell Farm Historic District, Page Ayers, Cowley, architect, late Anglo-Italianate style house designed by F.S. Barnes in 1871. Application is to keep the existing condition of the built parapet wall in place without modification. And who's here to present?
I have Paige and Eric and Gustavo. You guys can all unmute yourselves.
Right below that, it should say event detail.
You may need to push a button at the bottom of your screen.
I see Eric and Gustavo. I don't see Paige. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, we're here. Paige is having trouble logging on right now. So give me 1 second. Hello, Paige.
So will somebody tell me the true scope of this project? Is it?
Sign in by clicking this link.
All right, Gustavo, I'm going to mute you for a second while you're figuring everything out. Eric, you're in charge of responding.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Eric, what's the true scope of this project? It's talking about a parapet, but it's
Yeah,
a very large set of drawings.
yeah, so we, the Paige will go into a little bit more detail when she joins, but we have a permit for minor work and a certificate of no effect. It was multiple parts to the project. It was a rooftop addition, and the parapet is, there was an issue with the rear parapet, and we had an approved design, approved set of drawings, and there was some disagreement with Landmarks when we went to get final sign-offs about the detail of that parapet. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So we have to go back to a public hearing because it's the staff is not able to approve the as-built condition as it's constructed.
And it's the rear parapet?
Rear parapet, yeah. I'm not able to see if she's on or not.
Paige did just sign on, so I'm going to unmute her. Paige, you may have to confirm at the bottom of your screen. Paige, we can't hear you yet. Oh, sorry, I just muted you back. Try that again.
Okay, we good?
We're good.
All right, thank you very much.
Come on, anytime.
All right, I'm here.
What's no big deal?
All right, you're up, Paige.
Oh, hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paige Cowley. I'm principal and founder of PACA, Paige Ayers Cowley Architecture. Our firm was retained by Mr. Prasanth Rao Kathy, owner of 220 East 61st, in June of 2017, with construction commencing shortly thereafter in August 2017. The initial scope of work was limited to the interior and the installation of a small single passenger elevator. During the construction phase, there were additions to the scope of work. First, repairs and modification of an existing rear balcony at the second floor, and a modest rooftop addition set back from 61st Street and not visible from the street. The project was filed with the Department of Buildings with several structural and architectural amendments to keep pace with the changes in the scope of work. All of the work was inspected by the appropriate DOB section heads, representatives, and signed off by the Department of Buildings. There were 4 LPC permits filed and issued at staff level as per the US LPC requirements. All of the permits required a certificate of no effect. The first CNE was for interior work, issued on June 2nd, 2017, signed off by the LPC on December 13th, 2018. The second one was interior structural work, issued on November 20th, 2017, signed off by the LPC on December 13th, 2018. The rear balcony, issued on October 4th, 2018, and signed off on February 19th, 2019, and the rooftop addition that included the architectural, structural, and HVAC, issued on May 25th, 2018. This one remains open as a result of a final site visit by the LPC. This inspection was called for on January 23rd, 2019. We had all the final DOB sign-offs ready to go to close out any open permits and to call for a temporary certificate of occupancy. We had assumed that the LPC had been in sync with all of our submissions. We are here this evening because although all the required permits were issued and approved, all but the final CNE was signed off. The LPC at their final site visit took exception to the rear parapet wall that conformed to our submission, our documents that were approved, that showed the proposed work and the executed construction conforms to what we actually had shown on our documents. This construction is not visible from the public thoroughfare. I'm going to step back and let Eric take you through some meetings that we had with LPC starting in January 2019. Please note that our owner of the building moved into the townhouse prior to the December holidays. We did not need the DOB final TCO because there was one, because it was a single family residence. The client had sold their previous residence and wanted to settle their children before the restart of the school year in January. So that's the timeline and the scope of work. Eric, over to you.
Okay, so we had a meeting and several subsequent discussions with LPC staff to debate potential solutions to this condition. The staff agreed that the increase in the parapet height was modest, but they recommended that we construct and apply a molded polymer panel to the rear wall to recall the brick corbelling that was removed. And this type of detail is not something that we typically recommend, not only in terms of appearance, but also longevity. It would have to have been applied to the rear wall after construction was already completed and after the client had already moved in and occupied the building. The client was not present during any of these discussions with LPC staff. and he has not agreed to that solution. He wants the rear of his building to remain as it was initially designed and initially approved by LPC. My colleague Gustavo will show you some drawings and diagrams to illustrate the as-built condition and the area that's subject for discussion here.
Can I share the presentation or?
Just for clarity, before you start on that, what is the material that Landmarks wanted you to put on the parapet?
They had suggested that we put it like an artificial polymer panel applied to the rear wall to recall the corbelling.
Is that board similar to the hardy plank type material?
Gus, your microphone is a little distorted.
Okay. Anyway, so we're ready for the presentation, please.
You should be able to share your screen. There you go.
I'll start from the beginning. So as you can see, this is the property that we are talking about, discussing, 220 East 61st Street. The front of the facade has no decorative elements, has no stoop, no cornice, and you cannot see the rooftop addition, which is the reason why it was a staff level approval. You can see in the 1940 tax photo, nothing much has changed since then. By the time the building was designated, all ornamentation had already been stripped from the facade, and the designation report does not mention anything about the rear facade, any corbelling, or anything other than just the adjacent building that would maintain their cornices and decoration. 220 East 51st Street was just part of the row house. As you can see in the approved roof plan by LPC and DOB, Department of Buildings, we always show the roof, the rear balcony, and the rear terrace and the rear railings all the way to the edge of the property line, all the way to the edge of the back wall, including the rear parapet wall. In our proposed drawings, in the elevations, the one on the right is the rear elevation, and we called out the height of the fourth floor, the height of the terrace, and the height of the railing, showing the intent of the parapet wall going to the top and meeting with the railing, because we cannot have a floating railing in the rear facade. We did show the line of the previous existing roof, and I'll show you in the section why we did that. So in the side view, you can see in designing this rooftop addition, to set it back, we also had to deal with the slope of the roof, how to slope from the front to the back. That was in a detail that we had to figure out to manage the water drainage. So this shows the existing roof, which we use for the water drainage. And you can see in the back, right at the edge, we have the railing, and we have the terrace going to the parapet wall. In section, you see more of the structure, so you can see how the water was meant to run underneath the addition and run out the back to maintain the existing drainage system in the back for that section of the roof. In these enhanced addition, enlarged elevations, you can see on the bottom is the rear elevation that we're talking about, and you can see the height of the terrace, the height of the railing. Here you can see the photograph of the before and the after, and the as-built. So you can see clearly in the before picture how the parapet walls never really aligned, so it wasn't a consistent straight level. You can see the corbelling, which in our building was already modified. It was cut to allow for the drainage. It was actually cut on both sides, where you see on the adjacent buildings that went to the end. In the as-built condition, as we installed the terrace and the new fourth floor, the gutter moved up. So we never intended to put back any corbelline because it would just be alien to the structure floating in the middle of the rear wall. Because assuming it would need to line up with the adjacent corbelline and would not support the gutter anymore, as the gutter is now elevated to catch the water from the upper floor. You can see we have a little scupper to catch the water from the front, and that remains the same as was back before in the existing condition. So here is a rear elevation showing it's similar to the picture, just a drawing showing the existing and the before and the after. Again, we called out the height of the roof and the parapet and the terrace. During construction, the reason why we initially removed the corbelline, and well, besides that we never intended to have it there, when we started construction, we removed the roof, and we found that the rear wall has delaminated from the structure. So the parapet had to be removed down almost to the window level and reconstructed. In the reconstruction, in order to support the fourth floor above and the deck and the roof deck, a steel beam had to be installed. And in addition to tie in the existing roof and the drainage, an entire new waterproofing membrane had to be wrapped around the inside and installed within the structure and the rear parapet wall. So you can see in the following photographs how it's one big system that works together, the parapet wall with the structure and the waterproofing, to allow for proper drainage and safety for the railings and for people not to fall off. You can see on the drawing on the side how we show the water drainage and the steel in place and the whole construction tied together. In our discussions with Landmarks, they wanted us to do analysis of the rear facades just to show them how raising the parapet roof would not be too unheard of in this location. And as you can see, what we did, we mapped out the rear elevation of every building on this block. And none of the rear parapet walls line up at all, including you can see some of the buildings have had higher additions, and some of them have had equipment and modifications. In total, when we look at this, we did an analysis, we found that 19 out of 19 buildings have rear facade additions, 1 story or more. 14 out of 19 of these buildings have rear additions, including bulkhead additions or fencing around mechanical equipment. 9 out of these 19 buildings have rooftop additions. And we also discovered in our analysis, looking at the corbelline, you can see in the next photo, that not all the corbelline is the same, and not all the buildings have corbelline in this rear facade, in this rear elevation of these buildings. We found 3 different types of corbelline. We found buildings without corbelline, and we found 6 different configurations of those different types of corbelline. So it was nothing consistent in the rear. It was nothing that lined up and made it seem like a uniform appearance for all these buildings to have the same corbelline across. So you can see in these 2 other pictures more example of the rear additions, the rooftop additions, the built-out additions. You can see, one building has even a whole new stone facade that doesn't match the brick of the other buildings. You can see on the other side the modifications to the corbelline. Some of them have corbelline, some of them don't have. Some of them are angled, some of them are straight. So in general, there was nothing meant to keep these corbellines in place. So I believe at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our contractor, Fred Carlos, who can give you a little insight on more of the construction aspect of what would entail if we need to put back this corbelline.
More discussion?
I think he was trying to hand over to Fred.
Fred, you may have to push a button. There you go.
I did. Good evening, everyone. So the plan showed that the corbelling was going to go. And speaking with the structural engineers, we've all decided that, look, it was compromised. I think a lot of these buildings are compromised in some of the structures at the top walls where all the roofs have been mended and so on. It was sort of puzzling to us that we got to the end after Landmarks had visited the site, a few times and never kind of mentioned this before. But in talking about putting back a corbelling in a situation like this, in a property that has no rear access, so you have to go through the house in order to get to the backyard. And we're talking about erecting scaffolds, sidewalk bridges covering the neighbors and our own properties, just to put a corbelling back that, like Gustavo just said, is not exactly the same as any other one. I'm not sure that that's sort of a solution at this point. So the structural integrity behind this, that I think the structural engineer was here, he might want to talk about the complications of us actually having to take that wall down. It's not as easy as taking just 12 rows of brick down, incorporating the corbelling and putting it back up. The owner, who I have to deal with directly all the time, is sort of very upset about this whole scenario of how we ended up here with this sort of unclosed project. So I'm going to leave it to the structural engineer just to explain a little bit about the structural integrity of how we would have to even move forward with this. And that's Christian.
This is to rebuild, to put corbelling in, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. So I just want to add that we discovered that the whole rear wall and the parapet have been compromised, and it had to be taken down to the level of the existing roof, and we were to be rebuilt, and also, well, the roof structure if you see here, the roof structure has to be reinforced, and we basically built another structure on top of that for the little rear terrace, and to allow, like Paige was saying, to allow for drainage to go, under the new terrace and into the original roof. So we put a steel beam and to support the new railing and the new terrace, and in order to take down the parapet to the original level, or even to try to build it, the corbel will have to deal with a steel beam. It's more complicated than it meets the eye. I mean, probably if you have to put like a easy, like polymer corbelling, but that wouldn't match anything there. In order to put a more serious corbelling, would have to take down and rebuild the parapet, temporarily shore the beam that's there, and deal with waterproofing and roofing and everything. So it's a pretty complicated process just to do the new corbelling there. So yeah, it has structural implications. I'm sure Fred can talk about like the warranty of the waterproofing and the roofing and everything else that will be damaged during this.
Well, I don't think we want to get too technical.
Right.
As a landmarks committee, it's our mission to look at appropriateness. And it's interesting to understand the technical issues, but it seems to me that we have to decide whether what you have done is appropriate or whether putting corbelling in would be appropriate. So I think unless there's a lot more that we need to hear, I think, Fred, maybe you should finish up, or whomever, and give the committee a chance to comment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the committee could take over at this point. I would just like to say, out of all my years doing landmark preservation work throughout the city, look, as a builder, there's always complications, and there's always things that we'll have to face of what could stay, what can't stay. If something's damaged, how do we replace it? How do we change it? In this case, that wasn't really where our focus was, besides taking down what was already damaged, the structural that we had. It was that we, had it designed a certain way. But again, it was just amazing to us not to be picked up until the end of the project, till everything was finished.
I hear you. I hear what happened with the process. I just want to make sure we're all clear on the process, that there were 4 certificates of no effect. The 4th one was never fully approved, but you went ahead, got DOB approval on all the work, did all the work, and Landmarks came back at the end on the basis that the 4th certificate of no effect, which applies to this condition, was never fully approved. And therefore they have the right to
Clarify,
ask.
it was approved, that the drawings were all approved and perforated. It was a misinterpretation of our drawings by the staff when they came back in the end when we were trying to get the sign off. So it was in fact approved and perforated.
So you're saying that it was approved and the staff decided after they approved it that they had misunderstood what you were intending?
That's right.
And therefore they wanted you to do a major reworking of what they had actually approved.
Yes.
And therefore you now have to get a certificate of appropriateness for what's built.
I believe so. That's right, Paige.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we all understand the context in which we're going to be talking about this. So essentially, the certificate of no effect was approved, DOB was approved, it was all built, but Landmarks decided that they had misunderstood your drawings and therefore they want you to redo it.
Correct.
With corbelling.
Correct.
Okay, so I think I don't know if there's anybody from the public there who wants to talk. Paige, you wanted to comment?
Yes, I did. Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say everything had been approved. That's why I went through the issuance of a permit. We would never have done the work had we not had the permit. And the Landmarks Commission, throughout the process, it was an open door because of the sequence of the owner making decisions to keep increasing the scope of work. It was a rolling process until we ended the construction. The issue isn't only just putting the corbel back, but it's putting a fake corbel back on the back of the building. And the owner believes that we filed everything correctly. It went through the buildings department. It went through Landmarks. We were given approval. The permit was issued. The contractor in good faith built it the way it should be to repair the back wall. And that's why we can't go back and make a real corbel. It would be applied. And in my practice, putting something fake back that could be a problem to maintain and collect birds, etc., where we could never reach it, just doesn't make sense. And the person missing in all of these discussions we had with Landmarks was the owner. And he believes in good faith, the work was submitted, it was approved, and it was constructed exactly the way we showed it through Christian's structural drawings and our architectural set. So that's why we're in this predicament. We're not asking for a certificate of appropriateness. The actual odd type of thing that you're discussing tonight is to, as it says, the application is to keep existing condition of the built parapet while in place without modification. So I've never been in this position before, and I believe we've now satisfied all of the preservation requirements, and that, frankly, of the owner. End of story for me. Thanks.
Well, we know your firm well enough to know you would never do anything inappropriate from a process point of view, nor from a design point of view. If you were to have wanted to put a corbel in, would a real corbel have been possible when you were designing it?
Not really, because again, with you could see the height of the steel. It would be floating in space. I mean, it's an interesting question, David, you raised, because most of the time we try to put, or we don't want to have scrambled eggs and just rearrange details. But if it were possible to recreate that canted brick and put the gutter in some reasonable proximity on top of it, I think we would have done it. And for whatever reason, it was not done. And to be honest, this goes back over 2 years ago. So I can't remember all the discussion, but we wanted something that would be very easy to build. And as you can see, the aggressive schedule, Fred was working there almost, well, not illegally, but he had a huge crew with the different permits going at the same time. All I can say is it wasn't featured in any discussions with the staff, who were wonderful. They came, they liked Fred, they enjoyed the project, but they never ever mentioned anything about the corbel until after all of the work was completed. That's the tragedy here.
Okay, so what we're being asked to talk about as a committee and rule on, whether we call it a C of A or not, it's the equivalent from our point of view, is a polymer corbel, which still requires some rebuilding, or is it okay as it is? That's really what our options are tonight. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So again, I'll ask if there's anybody in the public who would like to comment. I guess we go to the committee.
I was just going to give a friendly reminder for everybody, because we have a few people who joined, that they need to raise their hand through the participants menu if you have any questions. Sorry.
And I think, why don't we do what we did last time? We'll start alphabetically going forward and then alphabetically going backwards. So with this one, why don't we go forwards? So I guess that's Elizabeth, but I'm going to rely on you, Will, because you have the names in front of you, although I could probably.
I have them in front of me, so you're in good hands, hopefully. Elizabeth, you're unmuted.
Oh, okay. Do you have a drawing of what was originally approved and what they now want you to do side by side, so that I can compare it? I must say I have a great deal of sympathy for the applicant in this situation. But I think in order to do what we're supposed to do, I would like to see what the actual issue is. The physical issue is. Can we compare what they want now and what you got approval for?
Should I answer that?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
but
fine. That's fine. Yes, please.
The issue is no, because we don't have a side-by-side comparison. We've studied the issue of where that gutter line would be. It wouldn't be at the top. It would be somewhere floating. And the problem is the owner does not want that detail. He likes the clean lines and the very, we did follow the type of gutter and the spirit of how the gutter was placed. So we've sort of reinterpreted in the current top part of the parapet wall, we've interpreted it the way it would have been, but we never put the corbels back because it would be too difficult with all of the anchorages that would be required. Fred, you might want to add something to that, but that's the gist of it. If that helps, Elizabeth.
Well, we know that technically it's a problem. I guess the only thing that you can show Elizabeth is some of the photographs again. The corbeling on some of the other houses, or if we can even get a close-up of the corbelling that was on the current house.
We do have an existing conditions photo that was to the left of the photo, the panel you were just looking at. And these are, as Gus said, we did a study of all of the corbelling that exists in the perimeter block. We actually did both sides of the perimeter block, the donut. And they're all different, and they're all compromised in some ways. Some are missing teeth to allow cell towers and communications to creep up party walls. I can't really point to one that's perfect.
All I'm driving towards, Paige, is if I go to the left-hand side and I go to the second picture on the top on the right, where you have gutters with corbelling under it, one is white, one is red. I mean, essentially, that's what we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, David.
And there is no corbelling on the current.
No, there's no corbelling as built.
Uh-huh.
Part of the issue is that, our gutter had to be raised up higher by necessity, and, it's a question of, you're putting the corbelling in where the corbelling used to be. It's no longer supporting the gutter as it was originally intended to do.
Well, I don't think anybody would have expected the corbelling to just float there. I think the name of the game would have been to simulate what was there once upon a time with a higher gutter and a higher corbelling. The question is, now it's built, and do we want to put in something which is a fake representation of what might have been done correctly once upon a time?
Yeah. Is there a very lightweight material, because this obviously is at the top of the building, so it isn't like looking at it on the ground floor. Is there some lightweight material that can be used up there to replicate what the corbelling would have been?
That's what
I'm
Landmark.
just trying to think of a way that would be easy to because I think it is too bad that you've lost the corbelling, but I see the problem in that you weren't required to put it in there. So, so I'm just trying to find a way, a middle ground, and there's a lot of stuff that I've seen put up that on the fourth floor or something or other looks fine. You would not look good on the ground floor. So I don't know, and we have architects on our committee, so maybe they know something that can be done.
Well, the applicant has already given you the answer. They can put up a lightweight material, basically pasting it on, and the reality is that it wouldn't be integral. And it wouldn't be real. And Landmarks does accept substitute materials. For example, they'll accept fiberglass instead of metal sometimes, but it's done the way the metal would have been done. This is just a paste on, and I'm surprised that Landmarks would even, I don't want to tell you how I'm going to vote right now, but I would be surprised that Landmarks would even suggest pasting something on, but apparently they are, and we have to decide whether something that is going to look like what Landmarks decides today they'd like it to look like versus something which was designed and approved as a design that had integrity to it.
Yeah.
If I may
the design, I think I'm trying to figure out if we can get the design that has integrity when the materials don't.
I think it'd be very difficult.
in the longevity of it also, you wouldn't have the same longevity on something like that. It would probably come down in about 25 years.
In any event, I think you've said it very well, Elizabeth. Can we make it look the way Landmarks might want it to look with a lesser material that would, in effect, be an application and not an integral use of the material.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
Right.
really the decision. Do we want something which is visually one thing, or something which is an integrated design?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's clear. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, next, Will.
Next is Gail Barron. Gail, you're unmuted.
Since I didn't hear the presentation, I'll pass.
Thank you. Next would be Michelle then. Michelle.
Yeah. So let me just understand something that I'm just unfamiliar with this, and I want to understand something. The gutters are running there because, of course, you need the drainage. And in order to put in the corbella reconstructed or however, it has to go under the gutter. And so it will look like it's floating nowhere. So if that's the case, can I ask you why the gutter is not running from the top of the addition down the side and wherever else it has to go down the side of the building for drainage? Why is the gutter starting from the rooftop but not the rooftop of the addition? And if it were to start at the rooftop of the addition, could that solve your problem in the sense that the drainage would be coming down the sides of the structure, leaving the immediate top of the original structure free to install a corbella? So am I understanding this or misunderstanding the possibilities here?
Well, I think if the little hand can go to the brickwork in the section, we have the equivalent of a corbel with the gutter running underneath the balcony in the front. That's that little piece that sticks out. So we have a gutter at the top, and the upper part of the rooftop addition has its own gutter system that feeds into it. On the left-hand side where the ladder is where the gutter, the drainage from the rooftop addition comes to the terrace, and then it goes into a gutter and joins the original leader. We thought that was important to keep. The only thing that's missing is the corbelling, because we needed structurally reinforced masonry to tie the delaminated rear wall. So we couldn't put the corbelling back in. There was a 4-inch separation between the top floor and the actual structure, as Christian and Fred pointed out, our builder. So we did the best we could, and we mimicked the line of the gutter. We could have concealed the gutter on the top altogether, but we said, no, this is the way these buildings were drained. So we put the gutter as it was, just lifted higher, but no corbelling, because we couldn't cantilever the brick without compromising the integrity of that ditched wall.
Okay, I understand that. So basically, there was no way to make the gutter on top of the addition adequate for drainage down the side and bypassing a gutter on the original construction. That's really my question. Was that not a possibility?
Michelle, the gutter on the Kenai page,
Yes, please do.
I just want to end this. The gutter on the addition has nothing to do with the gutter on the edge of the building. They're totally separate gutters. And the fact that they tie together, which they do for drainage, is not what we're really talking about. What we're talking about is the gutter at the edge of the building on the main roof line. And that gutter has to be there one way or the other.
Well, that was precisely my question. Did that gutter have to be there?
Yes.
Because in other words, the one at the top of the addition could not suffice with sufficient drainage down the side. So
No.
if that's the case, then that was my question. Thank you.
The answer is that you have to have that gutter. Next, please.
Next is our board chair, Lita.
Hi. First, I just want to say that I know Paige and have tremendous respect for her work. So, hi, Paige.
Hi.
Second, this committee has asked owners when they've not complied with certain landmarks decisions to go back and fix them. However, as Elizabeth said, I'm also sympathetic to the owner. On the other hand, that the owner likes the streamlined modern look is not sufficient for me. So I'm not really sure where I stand. I know it's artificial and applied. Still, it went with the original building. It fits in with the neighbors in some way. That it's floating, I think, makes it peculiar. So I'm just really not sure, and I'm anxious to hear what my colleagues say. Thank you.
So next would be Sarah Chu. I do not see her here. So if you are here, Sarah, and just under a different name, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to Anthony. Anthony.
I think there are a couple of things here. This is the rear facade. The landmarks approved it as built and is now coming back for what could be described as a second bite of the apple. And it seems to me that gluing a plastic facade, gluing a plastic corbel to the existing masonry wall is just silly. And that's all I have to say.
Okay.
After Anthony is Marco. Marco.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My first impression is, and the last permit is the issue that you cannot sign off. And you said, don't look at that. Look the corbelling, because the corbelling is the bad guy right here that doesn't allow me to finish. And the corbelling is less important than the gutter. The gutter you can address in the, I would like to discuss if you want a construction, but that is not the issue right here. I have many years doing these kind of buildings in construction too. So I have a lot of experience in that part. And to hear that the structural engineer doesn't have a solution, well, I respect that, but I'm not going in that direction. I'm going to limit my opinion exclusively in about the issue of the extension. And if you see the next, can you pass the next drawings, please? Yes, that one. As you see clearly, you yourself show that is the only extension in that block. You are changing the character completely in that part. And I think this is why the other was not. The other are taller buildings and the other, this one is smaller. And in the smaller one, that create a precedent to everybody in that block to continue. That is minor enlargement. So the point is that for that part, probably that trigger the issue that that Landmark doesn't want to approve you the rooftop addition. So going back to the parapet that you want us to discuss, and I think I consider it wrong because we had to see as actually what is the problem right here. The problem starts because you did an enlargement that they were approved somebody DOB. We don't care DOB. DOB, the only thing I care as long as with the zoning resolution and you have enough floor area, they don't care. But the only thing institution that care is according with the historical value is Landmark. But you are saying that it was approved. But however, even that they were approved, now you cannot close the rooftop addition. So my concern is in that direction. And Paige, I know that you're a very good professional and I respect always your opinions. And always, I know that you are in the West Side also with the same predicaments. But in this case, I think it's wrong completely. And I completely am going to disprove myself. I'm going to go against this application because doesn't say the truth. And if we allowed to do that, we, from now on, everybody is gonna do the rooftop additions, and then we'll come with parapets, with something else. And I think we had to stop this predicament. For myself, I think I'm strongly go in the direction to disapprove. Thank you.
Jane, I guess it's your turn.
Well,
Oh.
David, it's a very confusing application, but I have to say that Marco made a very good point about setting a precedent. I'm still confused that Landmarks, in theory, approved, and then, as Anthony said, took a second bite of the apple and then decided it wasn't correct. But I would hate to set a precedent where owners felt that they could go ahead with construction when every duct wasn't lined up. So I'm going to have to go with Marco on the principle of setting the precedent and vote against the application. Thank you.
Well, I think that Paige and her group have done an excellent job on the rear facade. It's simple. It's in keeping with the rest of the building. The fact that it's a little higher than the other buildings, that happens all the time. That precedent has been there, and I don't think we're setting a new precedent. In fact, you can see it as you look at that line of buildings. And we have certainly approved facades that are a lot more contemporary, a lot more modern, where the fronts were actually far more ornate, and yet the backs were far more modern. Here you have a back which is much more associated with the front. So I think that the architects actually did an excellent job in doing something very simple and appropriate, particularly given the relationship between the front and the back. I don't buy this thing about this as a precedent that's going to change the rules across the Upper East Side. That's a ridiculous idea, in all deference to my colleagues. That precedent is there already many, many times. And I think the name of the game is we look at this from a point of view of appropriateness. It's the appropriateness with respect to each individual situation. And sometimes you want to maintain the cornice line, and sometimes you don't. But I don't think this is one of those times when maintaining the cornice line is what's critical. Not only that, Landmarks didn't think it was critical to maintain the cornice line. They accepted the fact that the building could go higher. So I think we should go with that judgment call on Landmarks' part, accept the fact that the building is higher, accept the fact that there are many precedents for doing that. And then it comes down to, do we accept a simple integrated design that's appropriate in terms of front and rear? Or do we want to, you know, as Anthony pointed out, paste something on top of this building, which is not appropriate from a constructional point of view, and certainly not from the point of view of the long-term stability of the building, the weathering of the material, and the long-term look of the material. Long-term, this is going to look much, much better than applying a piece of plastic. So my vote is to please vote to approve the rear facade as it is, to approve the parapet as it is.
David, you still have Christina Davis from as a public member and two.
Oh, I didn't see Christina on the.
She's on via phone, and then
Okay.
you have two other board members who are also here. I didn't know.
Okay, well, let's go to them. They've heard my point of view.
All right, Christina, you may need to do something to unmute. I think it's *6 or *9. *6, I believe. Okay. Christina. Otherwise, going in alphabetical order, Harrison.
Harrison, I didn't see, but I see now. And Russell, my apologies for jumping in because I know you're here.
Harrison, you're good to go. Any questions or comments? We can't hear you if you're speaking.
Hello?
Yes.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Harrison.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I was having a mic issue. Any questions or comments? No, I think I'm pretty much set. I think everyone did a great job of, exploring this topic thoroughly.
Thank you. And Russell.
Thank you. So, I mean, I don't have too much to add that hasn't already been said, but I think basically on the one hand, I'm very sensitive to the idea. I think ordinarily, if there was corbelling before, there should be corbelling after, but I think here there are unusual circumstances that warrant a sort of departure from that, and also that I think mitigate the concerns about the precedent that we're setting. I mean, I just think this is sort of an unusual situation that doesn't make it as strictly precedential as I think folks are concerned about. And also I think precedent is sort of what we make of it. But I think the fact that the applicant basically relied on, in good faith on the original commission finding in doing what they did, I think, I think we should take that into account. I do think the fact that it's in the back means that, that sort of weighs in favor of approval for me also, as Anthony noted. And it sounded like there was a point made during the presentation that the rear of the structure wasn't part of the landmarks designation. So I sort of defer to others on the committee as to how significantly we should weigh that, but that does seem to me to be somewhat significant. But I think most importantly is just the fact that it doesn't appear that there is any more appropriate alternative to what's been done here. And so I think if the focus really is on appropriateness in the absence of solution, it's really more appropriate. And in the face of basically our best guess as to what the alternative would be, it seems like it would be less appropriate from a landmarks perspective. I'm inclined to approve the proposal.
Have we covered everybody?
What about Christina? There was Christina.
Christina, I'm trying to get her to unmute, but I can't get her to unmute. So she may have set the phone down or something.
Well, okay. What we've now spent an hour on appeared to be a simple application.
Christina
So,
raised her hand. Christina, would you hit *6 and see if you can unmute?
Lo que está haciendo es la señora Page. Ella se sienta en el landmark de Upper West Side. Le prepara todo, le ayuda, le dice lo dificultoso que es y después le ayuda y le dice te voy a probar.
Well, I don't know what's happening, but I'm hearing Marco, not Christine.
Yeah, that seems to be what was happening.
I'd really like to bring this to a vote.
Yeah, I think we could go to a vote, David.
That's what I just said, Jane. This is it's getting, a little bit out of hand.
So why don't we formulate a resolution?
Well, I would like somebody to formulate one.
Okay, I will. It sounds like it's a move to approve.
Can I make a friendly amendment? Hello?
We're listening.
Yes, we hear you.
Hello?
Elizabeth, yes,
we hear you.
Hello?
Elizabeth, can you hear us?
He can't hear us.
Please?
Elizabeth, we can hear you. I'm going to chat her. Elizabeth, can you hear us?
Hello? Can you hear me?
I mean, good. Elizabeth,
Yes?
you can hear us. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think that the application, so our position should reflect what we're requested, and it'll save people on the appropriateness position. The application is to maintain the existing wall, and I think that if we stick to that, then more people will be comfortable supporting it in its entirety, because I think that's what people want. More people want.
I think that's what
No,
Jane,
forget appropriateness, because we weren't asked to do that. We were asked to approve maintaining the built wall.
thank you, Elizabeth. That's a good way of phrasing the resolution. I think that's what was intended. But thank you for the language. Are we ready to vote?
Mm-hmm.
Bill?
All right. I will get up the vote sheet. Everybody should hopefully see a vote sheet now. We're just going to go through. This is an approval for item 1. Elizabeth.
Yes.
Gail, are you still unmuted? You are.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. Michelle, you're still unmuted.
Yes.
Alita.
Yes, and I know this may not be the appropriate time, but David, I would ask if you could put in the whereas clauses, just very specific language about why this is different, for everyone is concerned about precedent setting of this. Thank you.
Anthony.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Jane.
I just wanted to say that the reason I'm voting a no is because I'm so confused by the application. So please put me down as a no.
Marco, you may have to unmute.
Thank you. I'm sorry, this is not the right to say that, but I'm going to vote no. But Alida, I think we had to start discussing about parliament procedure, because according with parliament procedure, the chairs are completely impartial in this process, and it has to allow the applicant to speak whatever they want, and us, we're supposed to debate in whatever direction we want. And obviously the chair has the opportunity to say whatever he wants to. But this is a parliament procedure, Alida. This is not the first time that happened in all the community meetings. And thank you so much. I'm sorry to bring another issue. Thank you.
So Christina, I see you're still following along. I got your email. So just email me your vote if that's acceptable for David and Jane.
Yes.
Fine with me.
Okay. Kim is not here. Harrison.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm voting yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank
And
you.
Russell.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. On to the second one.
Thank you. We're moving along to number 249 East 68th Street between Park and Madison Avenues, the Upper East Side Historic District. The application is to replace the existing double entry doors. The architect is J.G. Knockham? Is he here? Is he ready to present?
I believe Greg is going to present on behalf.
Yes.
Greg, what is your last name, Greg?
Hitler.
I'm sorry, Hitler?
Hitler, yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. You can proceed.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name's Greg. I work for JG Newcomb Architecture. Jean Newcomb is the principal, and I'm the project architect for 49 East 68th Street. I'll try to keep this relatively brief. Share my screen here. So we are currently under construction for a renovation at the property. We started construction last year in August, and we're aiming to complete construction in September of 2021. We have an open application with Landmarks for minor work or a minor amendment to the bulkhead materials and rear facade, but they wanted to have us present the entry door replacement as they deemed it couldn't be reviewed at a staff level. So just to give you a little bit of context, the property is located at 68th Street between Madison and Park Avenue. We're on the north side of 68th, one lot in from Park. Here are just a couple of quick views of 68th Street to give you a little bit of context. The buildings at the top are looking south on 68th, and the photos at the bottom are looking north. You can see our site here, and one lot in from Park Avenue. So here are a couple quick photos for your reference. The photo on the left is the primary facade prior to us starting construction. You'll see here that prior to this photo being taken, that the front entry doors were taken away to storage for protection and replaced with these temporary doors for construction access. The two photos on the middle and right are tax photos from 1915, and I believe this one's actually from 1940. I do want to point out that in the 1915 photo, there are a pair of white doors here. So the existing doors that we currently have are not the original. So here are two older photos dating back to August 2013. These are the existing doors that we currently have in storage that we are proposing to replace. You'll see these are both painted black, rail and style steel doors, brass hardware, and decorative scrim on front. I want to point out that there is about a 5-foot setback from the sidewalk. There are a few steps up to a landing in the areaway, and then an additional step up to the door threshold. So real quick, just to give you a background on the design changes on the interior, the plan at the top shows the pre-existing plan, which we've since demoed, but excuse me. So the existing ground floor plate was actually elevated. So you'd come in through the entry doors, and there's about a 2.5-foot step up, several steps leading up to the ground floor plate. The plan at the bottom is our current construction plan, where we've lowered the floor plate so that the ground floor entry is now flush with the entry doors. The point of this being is you'll see further along in our rendered elevation that we want to propose doing a semi-transparent glass in the doors as opposed to the current clear glass. The rationale behind this is that now there is an increased sight line into the entry foyer, and we just want to give the owner a bit more privacy now that this condition has changed. So here is just a elevation showing our proposed doors in the context of the front facade. One more slide here. So this is the comparison of the existing and the proposed. On the left-hand side are the existing entry doors. As I mentioned, they're a steel frame with decorative millwork with a painted black semi-gloss finish. The hardware is brass. You'll see there's a brass knob on the right door leaf, and on the left door leaf, there's a brass mail slot and strike. And the existing doors had a clear, transparent glazing. The rendered elevation on the right are the proposed new entry doors. They're a solid bronze profile, and we're proposing a oil rub bronze finish. We'd like to change the hardware to a lever with an escutcheon plate. And as I mentioned with the floor plate difference, we'd like to give the owner more privacy, so we're proposing a semi-transparent glass in these. And you'll see here that we'd like to remove the mail slot from the left door leaf for security purposes. So real quick, here are just some materials. The photo here on the left is the door hardware that we're proposing, the lever for both door leaves. The image in the center is the semi-transparent glass. We still want to get some light through, but again, want to have some obscurity for the interior. And then the photo on the right, there's a range of bronze samples for reference, but we want to go relatively dark, so there isn't much of variation or difference from the existing contrast of what's there now. Here's just a drawing for documentation. Again, I want to stress that we want to match these doors in kind, just making slight modifications to the finishes in the door hardware, but we want to keep the decorative metal front as exactly as is. And lastly, here are just a couple of the existing photos of the doors before they're moved to storage. So you can sort of see just the age, and they've been repainted several times. We feel like we can give a contextual door that matches with a really nice finish. And that's all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to the application? If not, we'll go to the committee and follow David's point that we'll start at the end of the alphabet instead of at the beginning of the alphabet for the committee members.
And just to confirm, you want to go committee members, public members, other board members, right, Jane?
That's correct, I guess, although maybe the other board members have decided to join the committee. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, Will.
All right, I'm gonna start then with Marco Tamayo. Marco?
Thank you so much. The applicant, you did the right thing. In this case, yeah, probably the issue should be the hardware. You changed from brass to black. That could be an issue probably in this case. But you know what? If we apply what we did in last application, you shouldn't be here, because while doing construction, you modify the scope of work, and therefore the landmark should follow the same procedure with you. So you shouldn't be right here. You should finish, and when you finish, you come right here. That is what we discussed before. And I think you are doing the right thing, by the way. And I appreciate that you come in, and yes, you improve when you remove the slot for the mail. I think this is much better, and I like that. And I don't want to continue, but I'm going to say thank you so much, and I will support this application.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marco.
Next would be Anthony.
This is fine. The essential issue here is that they've changed from painted steel to bronze. They're not the original doors, although they're old. And so, yeah, I will support this.
Thank you, Anthony.
Sarah has joined us. The next person then would be Alida.
Thank you. Thank you. I like the doors. I am okay with the finish. I don't like the lever at all. I think it doesn't fit the style of the door, the gorgeous detail on the metalwork, the facade, and then you stick in a very utilitarian contemporary lever, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I just don't like the lever.
Thank you, Alita.
Next would be Michelle.
So you're replacing the doors, you're not stripping them down, you're replacing them to be bronze, is that correct?
Correct. We're replacing these with brand new doors.
Brand new, and it'll be exactly this design. It's exactly what we're looking at with the exception of the glass, which will be semi-transparent.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I can support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Gail.
I agree with Alita. I don't particularly like the lever, but on balance, I think you did a fine job, so I can certainly support the application.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I can support it as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Gail.
Christina, would you hit *6?
At last.
At last.
Thank you. Yes, I can support this as I did the last one. Thank you.
Stay unmuted. I don't want to lose you as we vote. And then, so Russell, and then we'll go to Harrison.
Wait, I just had a question on page 9. It looked like of the presentation, I could see the color for the proposed new door, and I was just wondering, is it? It wasn't clear to me if among the colors that are there on the right side is the existing door. If that's the case, which one it is? Could you just point that out? And if not, such as it.
No, sorry, those were just for reference to give you a color variation so we could see how dark it was.
Gotcha.
None of those there are the original or the existing, excuse me.
Okay, all right, thanks. That was all I had.
Thank you.
Harrison.
Yeah, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I really like the design of the doors, and I think they'll look great. And Greg, I think you did a great job on your presentation, and so I don't really have any questions. Thank you, though.
David and then Jane, or however you guys.
I guess me and then
David, do
Jane.
you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I approve it. I think they'll be beautiful in bronze, and you need a lever handle because of the ADA considerations. And I think that they've done a very good job and certainly have my support.
Thank you. I think we can go to a vote. It sounds like a unanimous approval. If anybody wants to disapprove, could they raise their hand? Will, I don't think you have to go through the whole roll on this item.
Okay, sounds great. Just gonna quickly mark everybody as a yes, so everybody can see it. You guys can start moving on.
Thank you, Will. I just want to make a comment on item number 1, which I voted no on. I just felt the presentation by the applicant could have been clearer, and I don't think it should have been left to Elizabeth to sort of clarify the language on what we were exactly voting on. I just wanted to make that point. I think we're ready to discuss. Is there anything under new business? Does anybody have any agenda item they wanted to address under new business or old business?
Marco has his hand up.
Marco.
Can I motion to adjourn?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
These are going to go down as committee resolutions because the full board isn't meeting. I just wanted to remind everyone of that. And then we have our Zoom meeting. Alita has arranged for the chairs and Elizabeth to meet with Sarah Carroll in a Zoom meeting on September 1st. So we will report back to the committee next month.
So Jane, if it's all right with you, I'd like to ask that if people have specific topics, the reason we were approached, Will and I, by Sarah Carol to set up this meeting because of all the letters that we've written and our passionate position on preservation. So if anyone has any particular topics they would like raised, to just email all of us, Elizabeth, Jane, David, and me. And I think if this is an appropriate time to say so, I think that we should just have a conference call beforehand, a day or a couple days before, just to cover what we want to talk about, if that's all right. And I believe I'm speaking for Will. I know I'm speaking for myself, that we'll just be in the background and leave the bulk of the discussion to Jane, David, and Elizabeth in more than competent hands.
Thank you. That's perfect.
100% agree.
Yeah, thank you so
You
much.
guys are the experts.
Everybody enjoy the rest of August. And remember, we're the only committee, aren't we, Alita, who met this month? So kudos to all of us. And thank you for the two new people who came, Harrison and Russell. It's always nice to have new blood.
Oh, you know what? Can I take 10 seconds and put in a plug for the HSSS committee meeting next week on preparedness for a second COVID surge?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Okay, yes, thank you, Elizabeth.
But just so it's out there, 6 o'clock.
Okay,
Stay
I think
tuned.
we're ready to adjourn.
Thank you. Have a great summer. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Jane.
you.
Thank you.
David. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
How do we get